So good morning, welcome. How are you feeling being in London?
It's been great, you know. These junkets are kind of intense,
Yeah.
but I've enjoyed my time here, and we've had the opportunity to meet with urban lawyers. We've had an opportunity to meet with young men who were recently incarcerated. So it's been a really interesting and moving experience to spend time with people in the city who are directly impacted by some of the issues that we talk about in the film.
Was it a bit of a shock to see kind of similar narratives that happen back home where you're from and seeing what's happening in the UK?
Yeah,
London?
well, I mean, you know, I've been here from time to time, and so
Okay.
I've known about the parallels, and so it's exciting for me for a story like this to be released in the UK, because this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people is obviously a challenge in America, but it's a challenge in the UK too. There are real issues, and getting people sensitized to that, getting people mindful of why we need to do better to eliminate bias and bigotry and racism is really important to me. And I'm hoping that advocates in the UK can, you know, have a film like this reinforce the importance of the work that they're doing to achieve equality and just and fair treatment for everyone.
Do you have plans to maybe make some connections and support movements over here?
Yeah. I've been involved with some prison reform efforts here in the UK, and I'll continue to do that. And you know, we are particularly interested in reaching out to faith communities that are often very silent when there are these issues, and we need them to be more vocal. And I'll continue to do that. But yeah, we really want people all around the world to recognize the threat posed by, you know, the politics of fear and anger. And we're in a moment right now, both in America and this country and all around the world, where you hear these voices that are trying to demonize people. They're trying to use fear and anger to retain power. And I think fear and anger are the essential ingredients of injustice and oppression. And when we start beating up on immigrants, we start beating up on people who are not native born, we start beating up on people who are different religion, we open the door to the kind of abuse and mistreatment that we've often seen. And so I think it's important that we be mindful of where we are, and we push back against that, and people be inspired to do the work of justice. And that's what I hope the film supports.
So of course you were at this point because of your work and career and legacy. So who were you when you first took on these cases, Walter's case in the first place? Who were you at that point?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think I was the same, but you're right. I was just kind of young and pushing hard. I did believe in the power of the law, because I'm a product of the civil rights movement. I started my education in a colored school. They didn't let Black kids go to the public schools when I was young. And lawyers came in and made them open up those doors. And so I always understood the power of law to protect disfavored people, to protect marginalized people. And I wanted to use that power to help other folks. Because I grew up poor, because I grew up in communities where we were excluded and marginalized. I wasn't unaware of the challenges. And when I went to death row and I met people who were literally dying for legal assistance, it became really urgent for me to fight for them. And there's an intensity, because, you know, these folks are facing execution, and we execute people in the States. And so, you know, I just was persuaded that I had to give it my all. You know, I couldn't just be engaged with my mind. I also had to be engaged with my heart. And, you know, that shaped my career. At first, it was hard to get other people to join in. The people were just very wary. But it's been really wonderful to see the organization grow, and now we have a strong staff of people, and now we're kind of in a movie, which is not something I ever expected.
I was going to ask that, because obviously you wrote the book, and just to document it, it's a memoir, I guess.
Yes.
But so there was never any inkling that this would make good screen fodder.
None. I didn't even actually expect the book to be read by anybody. You know, I just was, I wanted to document what I'd seen. I wanted people to have a kind of a testimony about what was happening. And I was really surprised by how well received the book was. And then when somebody came and said, we want to make a movie, to be honest, I was apprehensive, because I've seen a lot of films based on books that kind of don't get it right. And I would rather there be no movie than a bad movie. But when Destin, the director, reached out, and I'd seen his film Short Term 12, which I loved, and then when Michael B. Jordan got involved, we talked, And it was clear to me he was not just a talented, gifted actor, but he was really committed to these issues. And that gave me the hope, the confidence that maybe we could do something. And they were very solicitous of my input. And I'm super proud of the film. I'm really excited to share it with you.
And I mean, you've got Michael B. Jordan
Yeah.
and Jamie Foxx in your story.
Yeah.
And playing, and Jamie as Walter as well.
Yes,
so.
that's right. Yeah, it's unbelievable. They're so talented, and the cast was amazing. You know, Jamie, Michael, Rob Morgan, who plays Herbert Richardson, is an amazing performance.
Yeah.
All of the cast did an extraordinary job, and I just couldn't be, prouder of the way this thing came together, and to now have it go out into the world is very exciting.
So how do you feel about where we are now? I mean, there's progress, of course, but there's still hitting so many barriers.
Yeah, I mean, we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, the U.S. still has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We have thousands of innocent people in our jails and prisons. We've got a lot of work. I just hope we can engage more people through stories like this, that other people will see the need to get active, to get involved, to vote, to be participating in actions to support people who are wrongly convicted. That's my hope, is that we can engage a lot more people in the work of reforming these systems that can be so abusive and oppressive.
I mean, we talk about it being, films like this are harrowing, and there's this black pain narrative, but it's different because this is a black told story and we're in control of the narrative.
Yes.
Do you understand why people might feel hopeless? Yeah,
I do. I just think that we have to remember who we are. Right? Yeah. My great-grandparents were enslaved, and my great-grandfather learned to read despite the fact that no one ever said he would be free. My grandmother fled lynching and terrorism and still produced another generation rooted in love. My parents lived through the humiliation of segregation and Jim Crow, and they gave me this hope, they gave me this promise, and we have to give that to other people. I actually think that hopelessness is the enemy of justice. Injustice will prevail where hopelessness persists. So we don't have the option of being hopeless. We have to recognize that hope is our superpower. You have to believe things you haven't seen. I never met a lawyer until I got to Harvard Law School. Wow. I had to believe I could be something I'd never seen. And I just think that's what I want to give to people. I want to give it to young people. I want to give it to people who sometimes feel like it's just too hard. Our history is challenging and difficult, but there's also a story of strength and resolve and resilience and endurance that's part of that history that we need to embrace in these moments when there's a lot of conflict and controversy.
And just finally, how do you think Walter would feel looking down on what's going on about him?
That's my biggest regret, is that he's not here to see this. Yeah. I think he would just be so amazed and so gratified, because the hardest thing when you're an innocent person on death row, and for him and his family, is that you begin to think that nobody cares, because nobody pays attention, nobody responds. And so to now be able to kind of show this to the world and see how people care would be such a gift for him. I'm sure he's smiling down on this, and that makes me very happy.
And proud of you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
You.